Coming up on Midco Sports tonight, the hoop season has started and we want to get you up to date. We start all things NSIC. If the preseason poll is any indication of how tight the league is, we're in for a treat this season. David Brown is here to break it down. Then we get an overview of Bison basketball. Both the men and the women are off to great starts. All of that plus much more. Midco Sports Tonight kicks off right now. Hello and welcome to Midco Sports Tonight. I'm Carla Metts, filling in for the fabulous Kelly Stewart, who is off today, and we've got a packed show for you and can't wait to get all the action. Before we do, we're going to start right here in the studio with David Brown. And David, hoop season is already underway, so we need a men's basketball preseason.
I think we do.
Preview. Yes, we do. And the preseason poll was close as it could be. Northern State was only one first-place vote and 2 points overall away from Southwest Minnesota State. So whom do you think should be in the first place?
Well, obviously we have a little bit of the benefit of seeing a couple games, but I think right now you have to believe it's Northern State over SMSU for a couple of reasons. And the first one is the depth. They returned 7 of their top 8 scorers from last season, which helps in terms of the flow and the continuity. And so far early in the season, they also have the best scoring defense. But second, I know it was only an exhibition, but this team, this Northern State men's team, took Pac-12 Arizona State in Division I to double overtime in Tempe, Arizona last month. ASU, they're 20th right now in the Division II poll, Division I poll. So this wasn't just some low-level mid-major team that Northern State was competing against in an exhibition. This was a nationally ranked perennial contender. And third and finally, they beat Southwest Minnesota State earlier this season in Marshall, 81-68. I think Northern State right now has all the tools right now to be the favorite based on what we've seen so far and the clear depth of rotation that head coach Paul Sather has provided him. I actually talked to him at halftime of a Northern State football game a couple of weeks ago, and he said that Arizona State loss, even though it was a loss in double overtime, gave him some confidence, gave him some energy, knowing that they can compete with the best of the best. Surely will help once this conference season gets going a little bit more.
Yeah, it almost reminds you of the Augustana team from 2 years ago when they beat Iowa. Anytime your team can compete with a Division I school, much less a ranked school, I mean, that's a good thing for your program.
Of course, went on to win the D2 National Championship that year, so maybe a good sign for Northern State.
Right. Well, moving on into looking back at the poll, what is the biggest surprise for you in the preseason when you're looking at the poll?
Well, I just think that the University of Sioux Falls is a little bit lower. I discussed this a little bit the other day, but as the 9th team out of 16, I don't think that seems correct to me for USF. I think the Cougars are going to be a lot better this season by virtue of the fact that they have to be better. I said this on Tuesday's show, but it bears repeating. USF was 0-8 in games decided by 2 points or less that season. That cannot happen again because basic math has proven over time that it can. It's just such an odd statistical outlier. They will not be that bad in close games. But besides that, I think Drew Giebert is a top 5 player in the NSIC, and I don't think you can discount the fact that he has the ability to take over games when necessary. Had a career high 36 the other day in a big overtime win over Southwest Minnesota State, as you see there. That already proves that USF is a little bit better at handling close games this season as compared to last season. When you have a guy like that you can rely on down the stretch and add that to that increased depth for the Cougars, I think they can be a factor in this conference and not just another team in the middle of the pack. Sioux Falls should have been ranked much higher, in my opinion, in that preseason poll.
And maybe losing 4 seniors in Kibu Johnson and Mac Johnson, maybe that had a little bit to do with the placement, but
probably. Yeah. But again, you saw Drew Giebert's ascendance last season as well. I just think that his impact makes the Cougars a whole lot better.
Yeah, regardless, Chris Johnson is in the business of
very
rebuilding his team for sure. Well, what's one team that has a chance to maybe surprise people this season?
Well, they got a little bit of respect in the preseason poll, but I think it's Minot State. They were picked to finish 7th, which is the highest ranking they've ever received since joining the NSIC back in 2012. But their track record over the past couple of years has slowly and surely gotten better. They may have one of the top 3 scorers in the league in Tyler Rudolph, the senior from Bismarck. He averages 24 points per game already. And as of now, Minot State is the only team in the conference that is undefeated. They're 7-0. They're going to get a big test on Friday, however. They're going to host Northern State. That's one of my matchups to watch this weekend. An up-and-coming team like the Beavers hosting a Wolves team that's poised and positioned to be the best in the conference. That game's going to tell us a lot early on about both squads, but especially the Beavers. This is a team that really needs to show that it's ready to take that next step. They've already gotten respect in the preseason poll, as I mentioned. They have some nice depth around Tyler Rudolph, but they need to have a little bit more consistency. I think Tyler Rudolph will help them win some games, but if the rest of the guys on the Beavers can step up, Minot State may be a team to look out for come tournament time.
Yeah, definitely a big test tomorrow against the Wolves for sure. Be sure to look.
Absolutely. That'll be a good one.
Yeah. Well, what's a player that's maybe flying a bit under the radar that you need to pay attention to this season?
Everyone needs to remember this name, Harrison Cleary. He's just a sophomore for Minnesota Crookston, but he honestly could be the sole difference maker when it comes down to the conference tournament. I'm not sure how good the Golden Eagles are as a team, but I do know that despite my praise earlier this segment for Drew Giebert from Sioux Falls, Tyler Rudolph from Minot State, Harrison Cleary is the best scorer in the NSIC. He's averaging 26 points a game right now, averaged 22 last season, had an NSIC best 42-point game as a true freshman last year. He's a quick 6-foot guard capable of hitting from anywhere on the floor, and he actually helped Minnesota Crookston give Upper Iowa a run for its money in the first round of the conference tournament last season. Peacocks needed a buzzer beater to get past the Golden Eagles in the first round. Remember, Upper Iowa eventually went all the way to the NSIC tournament championship. Harrison Cleary plays a lot of minutes. That might be a factor down the stretch for Minnesota Crookston, but honestly, his ability to take over games is something other teams need to be aware of. Harrison Cleary, sophomore for Minnesota Crookston, will make his presence known this season.
And he's got an easy number to remember if you count the number 0 as a number, but definitely a great player to watch.
Easy to keep an eye on. You'll definitely notice him on the floor.
Yeah, for sure. Well, we are just getting started in the NSIC. Coming up next, MSU Moorhead is the preseason favorite, but is it also David Brown's #1 pick? We'll find out after this.
Midco Sports Tonight, presented by Avera Orthopedics.